Hey everyone, Adam here from LMN. I wanted to thank you all for joining us on today's live webinar. Our guest for today's session is Joseph Stark. Joe is the marketing director at Groundworks Land Design in Cleveland, Ohio. He brings over 10 years of marketing, sales, PR, and communications experience to the table. A graduate of Ohio University's Scripps College of Communication, Joe has worked well with known spirits and luxury brands, including Rolex, Breitling, Porsche, Aston Martin, Mercedes-Benz, Audi, Angel's Envy Whiskey, and Barrel Bourbon. Relatively new to the green industry, but not to marketing, Joe uses his originality and love for pop culture and applies it to day-to-day brand building and storytelling. Throughout today's session, please feel free to ask questions in the chat window, and we will do our best to answer them in full. So without further ado, I will pass things over to Joe, and he can get the session started.
Hey, Adam. Hey, everyone. Thank you very much. It's quite the intro. And thank you again for having me, to you and LMN. And those of you that decided to join, really appreciate it. I know it's 12 o'clock here Eastern time, so you're probably on your lunch. So I really hope that you can get something out of this presentation and we have a little fun. And as Adam said, please ask as many questions as possible. It's only gonna make this presentation more beneficial. So let me get this set up here. Okay, so let's dive in. So before we really get to the nitty gritty of marketing, I did want to review some goals that I had and really just what the agenda will be. So my goal today is for everyone who's joined to walk away with a simplified understanding of marketing. There's quite a bit of specialists out there and professors out there that at times might complicate things when it comes to terms of marketing, and it doesn't have to be that way. I want you to not be intimidated by marketing and really see the benefits from it and apply what you've learned today to your business really immediately. Of course, there are some long-term strategies and practices, but there's also short-term practices that you can apply to your landscaping business today and hopefully see some fantastic results. And again, please also ask questions. So what we're really going to talk about today in brief is what is marketing, and really what is marketing according to me. Marketing in the green industry, I think most can admit that it's fairly neglected and why it's neglected and what we can do to change that. Something that I like to call ABM, which is always be marketing. And then the three key drivers of digital marketing and really the foundation of digital marketing, and that's your company website, your Google My Business, and social media. And then some practices that I've learned from the whiskey industry and some of the luxury industry brands that I've worked with is media relations and advertising, and how that's also neglected, and you can really push your business and your storytelling to the next level by doing so. So who is Joe? This is really the first webinar that I've led, and as Adam mentioned, I've only been in the landscape industry for about 8 months. So I think it's definitely a fair question to ask, who am I and why am I leading this webinar today? So let me try to make you feel a little bit more comfortable and let me give you a little bit of background about myself. Like Adam said, I graduated from OU. I spent a brief year in Cincinnati, Ohio, and then I moved to Chicago, where I spent most of my 20s. I'm a former sales customer manager at a Fortune 100 food and beverage company. Then I was an advertising executive at Modern Luxury in Chicago, which is owned by Cumulus Media. And behind Clear Channel and Comcast, it's one of the biggest media companies nationally. And then I was most recently a director at an independent boutique PR agency. And that was where I spent a lot of time with spirit and whiskey brands and was able to apply a lot of PR practices to these brands to help better them. I recently moved back from Chicago to Cleveland, where I'm originally from, and that's where I kind of rekindled my relationship with Tony Nazarella, who happens to be the owner of Groundworks Land Design. And at that point, the rest is really history. I'm the marketing director at this amazing design firm, and I've been loving every minute I've been on board. Just to kind of humanize this webinar, since I can't really see you guys, I wanted to let you all know that I am married. I'm a father of two. I do enjoy pop culture and design and culinary arts, and of course whiskey. So speaking of whiskey, and with a title like Whiskey and Green, I felt it only to be right to at least give you guys a quick inside look at some of the brands that I've worked with. So I had the opportunity to launch Angel's Envy Bourbon in Louisville, and also launch their distillery in downtown Louisville. One of my favorite brands, Traverse City Whiskey Company, I worked with them. They're up in Michigan. I've also worked with Barrel Bourbon and Copper and Kings in Louisville. And then I've worked with gin and bourbon companies in Austin, Texas, both Still Austin Whiskey and Treaty Oak Distilling. So if any of the attendees are into whiskey, I'm sure you've probably recognized, had, or tasted some of these brands. And this is kind of where I was at before I came here. So of course, with the whiskey industry booming and all the successes we were having with the brands, I did the only smart thing anyone would do, and I just completely left that industry. And like I said, I rekindled some relationships I had in Cleveland, and now I am at Groundworks Land Design. So I like to tell people I left whiskey for green. Groundworks Land Design, just giving you a quick high-level description on the company that I work for and what we do. We are a premium residential and commercial landscape and design firm. We do everything from irrigation and snow and leaf removal to larger installs. And I would say our niche is really these large scale projects and creating these unique outdoor living spaces for affluent clients. And a fun little fact and note is that this background picture that you see here is a project we just recently finished up. So I wanted to include that to not only show and display the caliber of work that Groundworks Land Design does, but also what we'll talk about in a little bit is it displays the importance of high-res, beautiful images. So what is marketing according to me? Well, I would say that it's quite honestly a worn out term, and it's usually not used correctly. It's ever changing, and there's so many different platforms and tools that are coming out and being released that I think people might think they have an idea of what marketing is, but a lot of times they're wrong. And like I said earlier in the intro, I want you to have a better understanding of marketing and not complicate things. So I always say that marketing is storytelling, right? And it's any type of storytelling that you can do to get your branding out to the consumer. And then of course, PR is internally controlled brand reputation. Brand reputation is very important, but I want to put an emphasis on the fact that it is internally controlled, because as we know, there's so many different tools out there to receive the news these days that, and in those different ways that you're receiving the news, you can't always control that, right? So the elements of our branding and of our company that we can control, why not do so, right? Because it's only going to strengthen the storytelling that we're trying to get across. You hear this all the time, but marketing is sales. It 100% is, and sales is marketing. It goes hand in hand. At the end of the day, you're storytelling to attract a consumer, but you're attracting a consumer because you want to, make a sale, right? And then taking a step back and really looking at marketing, a lot of terms in marketing are dated. They are, and those are considered traditional marketing. And those are things like PR advertising, mind sharing, and branding. And these aren't wrong or these aren't bad, but quite honestly, they're not necessarily backed by analytics or data. So it's tough to know if they're working or get any type of ROI. I had a chance to read a really cool book by Ryan Holiday, one of my favorite authors, and it was called growth hacking marketing. And growth hacking is this term that people are now using, like Silicon Valley loves to use it. Ryan Holiday uses it all the time. And it's essentially any type of data analytic driven marketing strategies, right? So it's, email and data targeting. It's blogs that are targeted specifically to a certain demo. It's using different CRMs and using integrated APIs. And this is very powerful because with the data and with the analytics, you are able to see if the campaign that you've implemented is working right away. And if it's not, you're able to tweak it on the spot. Now, I'm a fan of growth hacking marketing, and it's only going to strengthen and become more in-depth and more useful to the marketer. However, I'm kind of unique within the marketing industry because I still like to use a lot of the traditional practices. And I firmly believe that a mix of both is where there's going to be the best intersection of success. A lot of people say, hey, Joe, what's the difference between marketing and digital marketing? And I want to be very clear that at this point, marketing is digital marketing. There was a time when consumers used and received their news from newspapers and magazines and billboards, right? And those things still exist, but then this thing called the home computer and the desktop became very popular, and the home TV. And now we've obviously seen just like this evolution in digital technology, and the laptop and the tablet took over. And now everyone has one of these, right? The smartphones. And I mean, any information you can get right away at your fingertips. So I say that the customer's journey is not only digital, we've established that, but it's also mobile. And that's why it's so important that any type of information you're putting out or any storytelling you are doing that's mobile compatible as well. There's kind of a buzzword in marketing called omni-channel marketing, and that's essentially just the different waves and different layers that the consumer goes through in this digital ecosystem to find information about your company. And I say that it's very, very important to intentionally make a digital footprint. Sometimes you hear this term digital footprint when in regards to computer hacking and all of that. And hey, be careful about your digital footprint. You don't want people to be able to trace you. Well, that may be right, personally, but I say from a company standpoint, it is so important to make an intentional digital footprint because that just gets you in front of the consumer more on this journey to find your landscaping company or your land design company. So in this digital space, I say the three most basic, important must-have drivers are search engine, company website, and social networking, which is of course social media. And those are the three things we're going to talk about today. And I'm excited, and I hope that you guys ask some questions. But real quick, I did say we were going to talk about marketing in the green industry, and it's absolutely a neglected term and practice in this industry. I can say this not to sound too harsh, but if you look at a lot of the websites that are out there that are attached and linked to landscaping companies, you can tell that they're not of focus and they're not important to a lot of these people. I also talk to a lot of people in the industry that don't have social media handles, and why not? It's free and it's a voice to talk to the consumer. The biggest thing you hear is the green industry is referral based and all the leads are word of mouth, and that's completely fine. But if you look here in the center of this slide, I kind of put into like a diagram what I believe happens when you get a word of mouth referral, right? So as you can see in the beginning, the WOM, that stands for word of mouth. Even if you get a word of mouth referral, you're probably not going to just call the company right away and say, hey, I want to work with you because of word of mouth, right? Consumer A is going to take that referral, jump online. Then they're going to look into a search engine and they're going to try to find a website based on landscapers near me. After that, they may find the company website. They may also find it in a search engine listing, but then maybe they're going to jump on the social media handle, right? They might even do that backwards. They might go to the social media handle first, then the company website. My point being is that even a word of mouth lead and referral still somewhere along the customer's journey includes and embeds digital presence and that omni-channel marketing that we've talked about, right? The good news is that all of the type of marketing that landscapers should be doing is considered inbound marketing, right? And inbound marketing is primarily free and it typically yields the highest ROI. So that should be, exciting for all of you listeners because it's free and you're going to get a great return on investment. This last stat here, I thought was fun, and I really just put it in here to encourage everyone before we dive into the 3 key drivers. And it's a little bit older, so it might have even changed a little bit. But right now, there are currently about 100,000 registered landscaping companies, and none of those companies own more than 5% of the market share. So I included that to say not, hey, if you start marketing, you're going to be able to own, a much larger percent of the market. But I included that because it's important to note that there is so much opportunity for all of us. And if you are marketing, it's only going to better that opportunity. ABM, like I touched on earlier, always be marketing. This is very, very important. I say busy today doesn't mean busy tomorrow. Businesses are always going to be going up and down, peaks and valleys, and it might sound a little backwards, but when you are making the most money as a business is when you should be doing the most marketing. And that's strictly because marketing is not a band-aid, right? It doesn't just immediately fix a problem. It needs to always be happening. So you're going to have your ups and downs, but when you're up, you're high. But when you're down, because you've still been marketing, you still have a presence and you still have, a market share within your area or your targeted market, right? And marketing is very, very much a proactive approach and a proactive practice, not reactive. So if there's an issue, you can't just all of a sudden turn on marketing and hope that it fixes that, right? There's ways to scale up and down, but I say always, always be marketing. And something to note that is fairly new to me, as I'm new to the industry, is in the landscaping industry, we always say it's so important to always be hiring, right? And marketing is not only going to help you attract new clients and consumers, it's going to help you attract new employees if you're doing it correctly. And you may not even, intentionally be trying to attract new employees, but if you're putting out the right information and you're storytelling correctly, other people are going to pick up on that, whether it's a consumer or employee, which is going to further help you. So let's dive into the first key driver, which is your company website. And I really wanted to start with this fantastic statistic that I found by Modern Retail, and it's essentially saying that 73% of consumers prefer to use a company's website over anything else digitally in that omni-channel ecosystem to find services. So that right there should be enough to convince you how important a website is. So your website is your company's top salesperson. It's your company's DNA. Think about, put your marketing hat on, right? And think about when you're looking for something new, whether it be for fun or, a household service, you're not picking up a magazine. You're not walking around to see the first billboard, right? You are jumping online and looking at companies' websites. So all of the most important information that you can have and that you want the client to see needs to be on your company website. A lot of people say that websites should not be brochures and they should drive sales. And I say that they can be brochures and drive sales because I think brochures are very, visually pleasing. And I think if you're using the right content, you can absolutely push home, some beautiful imagery and pictures. But of course, I do agree with the fact that at the end of the day, you are doing all of this and you are building this website to drive sales. But what's also very important with a website is driving sales in mind is you need to have a CTA, which stands for call to action. And in the chances that a client or future client rather, like a prospect, jumps online and loves what they see, this call to action allows them to get in touch with you right away. You wouldn't want the consumer to love what they see online, but then not have a way to get a hold of you because then you've actually lost a potential client. So the call to action is so important. And I'm actually going to jump to this next slide so you can see Groundwork's webpage because I want to talk through in a couple of notes that I have here some important essentials and then other considerations to have on a website. So I think you all can see the Groundworks website. Now we have the laptop view and the mobile view. And of course, this was very intentional to include because what we've talked about earlier, how important it is to optimize mobile and have everything available mobily as well as on the desktop. Something else I wanted to call out here quickly was that the cutoff, it's not like I just screenshotted it and this is all I could fit on the slide. This is actually the page break. So when you're on a laptop or a MacBook Air, for my instance, everything that you see here in the laptop picture is above the page break. And it's the same as mobile. And you'll notice that even though it's designed a little bit differently, looks a little different, all of the information is intentionally included on both, right? So I'm on another slide here, so I'm going to read off some notes, but some essentials to have are mobile friendly. We already touched on that. High res imagery, contact information, mission statement, and service. So starting from the top left, you can see our brand logo. That's so important. You want to stay in front of the consumer. On the top right, you can see a phone number as well as some social handles. Now that phone number is, you can as a consumer click on that and get a hold of us. And it's kind of like a soft call to action. Now the main call to action is in the middle of the screen where it says receive a quote. So in the chances that a customer loves what they see, they can click that button, they go to our contact page and we're able to get a hold of them. Something else that I really wanted to point out, we'll talk a little bit more about in the social media portion, is the beautiful imagery, right? And this kind of goes to the fact and the point that websites can also, a good website and a good landing page can also help you qualify and disqualify clients you don't want to have. So not only is this a beautiful picture, but we take a lot of time to choose what we want pasted on our landing page, because we want customers to understand that we are a high-end landscape and land design company. So you see a pool here, you see fountains, you see a custom pergola. This is a really big project, and a customer that's looking for maybe just a grass cutting every couple of weeks or some edging, not to say we wouldn't love to help them out, but I'm thinking they're going to come on here and they're going to look at this picture and say, ooh, maybe I should go with someone else. And quite honestly, we want that because we all know how many calls we're getting right now, especially with COVID and everything going on. And that automatically saved us time from a sales call, and that automatically disqualified a client we might not necessarily want. A few other facts I want to call out really quickly that I found in my research before we move to the second key driver is basically you have 8 seconds to catch the attention of any consumer. That's how visually driven we are in today's society. And when you get to our landing page, we believe that it's pretty and it's beautiful and it will keep the consumer's attention, and then hopefully they'll scroll down and learn more about us. There's also a fact that I found that you will generate 220% more leads with a landing page that has all the information that you want in it, which is very amazing. And who doesn't want 220% more generated leads? And that's strictly just from providing the correct information. And the other thing that I thought was really interesting was even today, with as mobile driven as a society as we are, only 50% of landing pages are optimized for mobile devices. So if you're not optimized for mobile device, just put your marketing hat on again. Think about how much you use your phone. And anytime you're using your phone, you're kind of just counting that consumer out because your web page isn't optimized mobily. And then a few other things I wanted to call out very quickly. Other considerations to include are social media handles, awards and accolades, process and timeline. And we do have all of that online. I just don't have a picture of it because I wanted to drive home the importance of the page break. So the second key driver today that I wanted to talk about is search engines, right? And we're going to specifically talk about Google My Business, because basically any search engine someone uses is going to be Google. A stat that I have pulled up here on my other screen is that Google accounts for 75% of the worldwide searches. Bing is second at only 9%, right? So think about how often you Google something. That's why it's so important to work with Google and be present on Google. So not only, so GMB, just so we're all clear, stands for Google My Business, right? And Google My Business not only puts you on the record, meaning it puts you online, but it also builds instant credibility. So Google My Business, I almost approach as like a second social media handle. It's going to communicate to customers what you want. It's going to help you with your storytelling. But the beauty of this is that Google actually uses your Google My Business to help you on the back end with SEO. Now, SEO stands for search engine optimization. Don't really want to talk much about that today. That could be a whole second webinar. But the way Google works is when you search for something in your Google bar, so landscapers near me, they're going to pull all the information they can and how it pertains to that particular consumer. So if you have a Google My Business page, you're already that far more ahead than someone who doesn't, because Google is going to pull that, and that's going to be considered in the back end logarithm of what populates on that first page. The other great thing about Google My Business is it's basically just a free data point session. Like, it has so many different performance metrics and analytics and insights, and I'll show you on the next page some of the insights that it can provide. So not only are you putting yourself on record, not only are you communicating with your customers the same way you would on a social media handle, but you're also receiving data back from Google, and you're learning these consumer behaviors on their journey to find landscapers or land design companies. So let me bounce to this page here. So again, we looked at Groundworks webpage. Now we're going to Google Groundworks. So the three photos you see first, they're stacked side by side, but typically this is what would populate when you would find our name, whether you're typing in Groundworks Land Design in Google or you're typing in keywords that Google thinks Groundworks Land Design matches up well with, right? And this would be on the side bar. They call that the skyscraper in the mobile world. And it's great. You can see that we have our company name, you can see our reviews, you can see our address, our hours of operation, and you're going to see there's going to be consistency in all three of the key drivers we talk about, because again, everyone uses different platforms and different tools to get information, but what's important is no matter what tool you are using, you are providing the same information. So right away, people can see our logo, they can see who we are. We've put our address in there, which is another great tool and another factor that Google takes into account when they are pulling your search. And then you can see some of the photos that we've recently posted and our social profiles. This picture to the right. Yep.
Hey, Joe, sorry to interrupt here. We have a question from a guest asking, how do they set up their Google My Business account?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you don't have a Google My Business account, you can go to, I believe it's business.google, or just simply Google Google My Business, and you can log in and create an account. What you're going to want to do is right away, you're going to be prompted to type in an email, and I suggest using a Gmail because then everything is integrated with Google, but you can use a Yahoo or Bing address. And then once you type that in, there's going to be a prompt where it says find and manage business. Now, the catch here is there cannot be any duplicates with Google. So you need to make sure that the business Google finds is indeed your business. And then you're just going to follow the prompts and fill in the different categories. And it's really simple, and you can strengthen and scale your account as you go. And then something that I tell people to do as well, which not only helps with Google My Business, but puts you on the record, would be register your business with your Secretary of State, register your business with any of local chambers, and that's going to help drive your Google search and your back end really discovery when when you type in landscapers near me, you're going to then pop up and you're going to have many more results, which is just going to strengthen the search. Does that help, hopefully?
Yeah, that's great, Joe. One more question here from another guest. They're asking, how important are 5-star Google reviews on the Google My Business page versus your actual website?
That's awesome. That's a great question, and we actually work with an external company to make sure that both of those are visible because it is so important. So the Google reviews, I mean, they can really make or break you, and that's also just like a whole nother conversation. But we always encourage our workers and our crew members to, tell the clients, if you're pleased, leave a review. So the Google reviews and the stars that you see pictured here on the Google My Business page, those are very powerful, but they're not going to like affect anything with the page. It's not like if you don't have a certain number of stars, you won't have a Google My Business page, right? So you are always going to have a Google My Business page, but if you notice, the stars and the rating are right under your company name. So people look at that very quickly, and believe it or not, those yellow stars are very powerful too, because again, we're a visually driven society and people see those right away. So I think they're very, very important. Now, in order to get them on your web page, that kind of goes back to the suggested testimonials that I talked about. If there's any type of way to build credibility fast, it's testimonials and reviews. So I highly encourage putting them on your web page. I can't say which one is more powerful because some people might stop their search journey right at the Google My Business account. Some people might choose to go to the web page. But again, in the theme of staying consistent and telling the same story on all different platforms, I would absolutely put them on both. And then very quickly, what I will say is there's a lot of tools out there that help pull your reviews from Google and then automatically populate them on the web page. And that's a tool we use. I believe the company we use is called Testimonial Tree. So they essentially take these testimonials and reviews and on the back end, pull it from Google and apply it to our web page. Is that good, Adam?
Yeah, that's great. I think that covers the Google My Business questions. Thanks for that.
Yeah, perfect. And then that other picture that we haven't had a chance to talk about here, just really quickly, is just an example of what the insights look like. And actually, it's a great lead into social media and into the power of visuals, because this is a chart. I can't see the full chart here, just the way my screen is, but basically it's showing just in 1 month how many viewers and unique views we've gotten on photos. And I'm not doing anything special. I'm not paying for extra advertising. This is simply just by uploading the photos to the Google My Business page. So even if folks aren't going to our webpage, or even if they're not turning into clients, like you can see how many people compared to our competitors are just looking at our photos that we're uploading and are paying attention to the Groundworks Land Design, Google My Business page, and brand and what we're doing. So the third key driver that we'll talk about today is social media, and I absolutely love this quote: content is fire, social media is gasoline. And that couldn't be more true. I don't have to sit here and tell you how powerful social media is, but what I can tell you is you don't need to be on all of them, right? Like on all of the platforms. I always say that, people ask me, hey, like what's the best platform, and should I post something to this platform but not to this? And I just tell them to take a deep breath, and I tell them to pick a platform that you're most comfortable with, and then learn it inside and out. Because what's happening is, if you try to be on every single platform, one of the platforms is definitely going to be neglected. The other thing is, not all of your followers are on all platforms either. So if you post the same content to all of the platforms, that's okay, because the same way you may favor a social media channel is the same way the consumer might favor the social media channel. What I would say in the early steps, if you don't have an account right now, is set up your account as a business account, because similar to Google My Business, that allows you and provides you with quite a bit of analytics, data, and insight. There we go, talking a little bit about that growth hacking approach, right? And it shows you how powerful your posts are. So again, circling back to growth hacking marketing, you can post a before and after photo, and then you can post maybe just a staff party photo, and you can compare the analytics and see what is more powerful based on the people that follow you. And I would highly suggest then start posting more of what performed better, right? I also think content is so important. Content. People literally have full-time jobs just creating content. And I understand that, sometimes margins are small in the landscaping industry and we can't all afford someone that just creates content. And that's certainly not what I do. But what I can say is the more content you put out, it's just the more storytelling you're doing. And it's the more, you're getting in front of that potential consumer. The other thing that I like to say is if content is king, consistency also has to be very, very important. And I think we chatted a little bit about that when we were talking about the Google My Business. But again, you have to be, the same brand on LinkedIn as you are Instagram, as you are Facebook, because people may favor or choose a different channel more than another. So the same way we walk through some essentials and suggestions and considerations on the webpage, I want to do that with the social media. So again, I am going to jump to our page, and bear with me here as I try to pull up this screen. So this is Groundworks Instagram. I happen to love Instagram, and this is where we do a lot of sharing. Funny enough, we have our strongest following on Facebook, but that's neither here nor there. So what I pulled up here was a comparison of 2008 content versus 2020 content currently. And they're similar ideas and pictures, but they're just executed a little bit differently. So that first one, you can see a fire pit, and then you can see a fire pit the way we did it. And you can see right away we had 20, the way we did it currently, I should say. So you can see right away we had 20 views on the old post. It's a little blurry. It's not, totally in the picture. Maybe some of the tagging is a little off. And then we did this second photo here 2 years later, and we're up to 240 views. So again, this is the power of content, and this is the power of representing yourself the way you want consumers to see you in these beautiful photos. Same thing goes for the outdoor kitchen and grill photo here. Something else I wanted to point out, oops, sorry, is our company landing page. So this is our profile page. Again, we're using Instagram as an example. Same as Google My Business, same as website. Again, consistency is the theme here. You're seeing our company logo. You're seeing our description, what we offer. Something that I think is very important in social media that not a lot of people remember to do is also including where you're located. Again, this is so important. Some people might use Instagram as their preferred search engine method. So make sure you're getting all of that information in the upfront, and almost treat your profile the same way you're treating your web page. Anything above the page break needs to be important. You don't want to bury the crucial information. And then something that I wanted to point out as well is these little circles you see. I don't know how familiar you are with Instagram, but these are story highlights, right? And these are basically permanent Instagram stories. And this is what I mean by taking the platform that you feel most comfortable with and love, and then just marry it and learn it inside and out. When these highlights became available to us as marketers, I jumped right on it, right? And what we've done is we've actually created little lookbook segments that give the clients and the potential clients an idea of like big projects that we work on. Now, this is a great example of how we're using new tools that Instagram is pushing out to better our marketing and our storytelling. And as it pertains to pictures, the one thing I want to drive home is, content can be a little bit difficult to, I guess, come up with or create. but we are landscapers and we are outside almost every day and we are at these beautiful projects. And there should be no short of content, right? So don't be intimidated or scared to post a couple pictures. I would say just, excuse me, get out there and do it. We're in a really cool situation where we can post different projects every day, whereas other marketers for companies that aren't as exciting or aren't as visually appealing as landscapers have difficulty doing that. I'm gonna take a quick drink of water before we jump to the next slide here.
Yeah, hey Joe, another question from a guest. They're asking which buzzwords or areas of focus they should use for their design build company.
That's a great question. So, and that's something I should have talked about, but I didn't. I'm just trying to get through this presentation, is hashtags, right? So hashtags are very strategic and they're very helpful. However, I see people do this all the time. Just to note really quickly, hashtags don't work on Facebook, okay, guys? So just make sure you're only using hashtags on Instagram. What I will say is, I always hashtag our company, because what a hashtag does is it puts it on record. So you're basically in your search, if people want to search certain items the same way they would type in something in Google, you can search on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, any of that, and the hashtags that you include will help populate that content that you've produced. So I always do the company name, and then you can do a simple land design or design and build. What I also like to do is try to geo-target it, right? So the same hashtags you're using with design and build and landscaping, put your location in front of it. So a hashtag I use a lot is like Cleveland landscaping or Cleveland land design, as we're located just outside of Cleveland. But then I don't like when people overthink it. I've actually seen our post perform better when I just dumb it down and honestly call out what's in the picture. So I can actually jump back. So for example, like this fire pit picture, instead of trying to overthink it and use a lot of landscaping terms, I will simply put, and you can even see what we did there, this was taken out of country club, hashtag country club, hashtag fire pit. You don't need to complicate things. I also think it's really important to tag any of your vendors or industry partners. So something that we see a lot, or we use a lot rather, is we'll tag Unilock when we're taking pictures of paver patios, and we'll hashtag Unilock. And what's great there is not only does it, again, help segment the search, but then you're having this great conversation with other credible companies within the industry. And Unilock has reshared some of our pictures, or they will comment on the picture, and then you're tapping into Unilock's audience, and really sky's the limit at that point, as such an established and respectable company. Anything else, Adam?
That was great. No, thank you.
Okay, great. So then the only other thing I wanted to say, and this isn't a key driver in the digital marketing world, but I did want to talk about media relations. I think I am a kind of a PR guy at heart, and I do see quite a bit of need for this. I do think it's neglected in all industries, honestly, but media relations is primarily what I did within the whiskey industry, and we just have success story on success stories with brands that we've helped build. So I think it's very, very important to focus on media relations. I have a fact here. Nielsen report says that 25 to 40% of all traffic and lead generation actually comes from earned media. So what is this thing called earned media? Well, it's essentially any type of publicity that you get that you didn't pay for. So we can tell our story all we want, but boy, it's a lot more credible, and it takes it to a next level when someone else is telling your story. And again, the best part about this is it's free. So buzzwords within the marketing advertising industry that you hear a lot are earned media versus pay to play. So it's important to just kind of know the difference between those. I'd also say don't be intimidated to share your news. It doesn't have to stop on your website or on your social media channel. There's so many different avenues and ways to get your story out there. So, as a PR expert, and as someone that like sees such value in media relations, I always say it's very, very important to kind of learn your market and then target a few media outlets that you would like to reach, whether that be a news channel or whether that be the local or alternate paper. Subscribe to those lists and pay attention to the stories that are being written, especially as it pertains to landscaping and land design. And also, I would say learn the people that are writing these stories. Another term you'll hear a lot is publisher versus editor. And it's very important within media relations that you're always hitting the editor. The publisher is actually the sales rep and the person that's trying to sell you ads. So just keep that in mind. And here's just a few, tips for creating pitch letters. The main thing is, making sure that your pitch is newsworthy. You're including your company information. You're keeping it short and sweet. And what's great about media relations is it's another example of taking a traditional marketing tactic and kind of turning it into this digital world with growth hacking. Because once you get a story placed or someone writes a story about you, there's endless ways to then push that through data-driven strategies and push that to the world, right? So like you could get a story, post it on your social media, maybe run a small little ad with it, right? And now you're just amplifying that storytelling, which is great. And I know we're running short on time, so I want to just quickly finish up here, but here's a great example. So in under 8 months, here are some great stories that we've received. You can see, we're in the Cleveland area, so cleveland.com, some industry folks. We were on like this viral Instagram story with Barstool Sports, if any of you know that. Of course, some trade magazines and names that you probably recognize. So this is a great example of how media relations can help build credibility and can assist with the storytelling. This is actually pulled from our press page. Something else that's really fun and I highly suggest with a web page is finding a section in your web page to kind of brag and kind of show folks and consumers where you've been and that other people are talking about you, right? And then media relations, of course, puts your company on the record. I simply just Googled Groundworks and then I hit the news tab. And here you can see some of the recent stories that we've been in are actually appearing in the search results. And this goes back to the SEO and driving more traffic and becoming more present in the search. And I'll end with just a sad Don Draper, because I don't think it's appropriate to advertise if you don't have the budget. That's shocking for me to say because I was an advertising executive, but it's just important to understand that there are so many digital tools out there that are free and that can help you. So don't be swooned by these, national attractive campaigns. The other thing to note is that the way a lot of advertising works is branding based. And although branding, again, can be very attractive and very fun and cheeky, branding shows very little ROI. And everything that we want to be doing, if you remember that inbound marketing, is direct response. So we're asking for something and we're giving consumers an opportunity to get a hold of us and contact us immediately versus just general branding that's out there. What I will say is if you do have the budget, marketing in general typically suggests 3 to 5% of your overall profit should be allocated to that. And if you really do want to dive into the advertising world, I'd love to talk to you, but half, if not more than that 3 to 5% should go towards advertising. And this quote is pretty crazy. It basically says that if you're not generating, $2 million or more, don't even attempt a national advertising campaign. And the catch here is that this quote comes from Ogilvy, who's kind of like the king of advertising. The more shocking part of this quote is that it was written in 1963. So if he's saying that you need to have at least $2 million of profit in 1963, obviously there's been inflation, so I can't imagine what it would take to actually do a full advertising campaign in today's world. So there's great benefits from advertising, but some of these digital key drivers that we've talked about are going to, lay your company's foundation and absolutely get you started. So with that, I want to thank you guys again for joining. I know we jumped around a lot, and I know there's tons to talk about, but for the most part, I hope it was beneficial. I hope you can apply just a couple touch points that we talked about today to your business. And Adam, I'm not sure if there are any other questions, but it's 12:50, so we got about 10 more minutes, and I'd love to answer anything I can.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for that, Joe. We have a few questions here. So first up, Joe, you had mentioned using visuals associated with luxury pools, high-end backyards, etc. My company focuses on lawn maintenance and in the winter, snow removal. Any advice on showcasing this as more appealing / luxurious on my webpage? What about on social media?
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's a couple ways you can answer that question. I think right off the bat, whatever you do, be honest and take pride in it, and tell the consumer what you're doing. So it doesn't matter if you are doing just snow removal or if you're building a massive pool. None is greater than the other, and I think it's important to highlight what you do and do it at its best. As far as maybe making those things look more luxurious or making those things look better, what I will say is there are so many tools out there on just our phones, let alone apps that you can use that will help you edit. They will help you take a cleaner picture. We have a couple cameras at the company, but quite honestly, like a majority of the work you see is right here on the phone. These iPhones are so powerful. And then there's really fun editing apps. So even if you think, maybe the picture isn't that exciting of someone shoveling, again, that goes back to, marrying the social media, channel that you want to work with. I would say utilize the fun tools and accessories that they've implemented. So, maybe a shoveling picture you could, turn into a video and make the person go in reverse, or maybe you could lay a really neat filter on it. The creativity that's out there is endless. So, I mean, I wouldn't discredit any of the work that anyone is doing, but what I would do is, find fun ways to maybe drive home a picture or a site that might not always be as exciting, right?
Perfect. Thanks for that. Another question here from a guest. Does Groundworks Land Design do their own photography, or do they hire a professional for their website photos?
Great question, and a mix of both. So when I came on board, it was all, so that was just 8 months ago, it was all our own photography. Again, some pictures better than others. The phone, the camera, can create some pretty beautiful images. One thing that I think is very important, especially when you're putting images on record, is investing in professional photography. But again, that doesn't have to be intimidating, or that doesn't have to be expensive. We started to build a Rolodex and highlight some local photographers. Another suggestion would be maybe even get in touch with some local schools. A lot of the times these students that are, aspiring to be professional photographers have to get a certain amount of hours done, to pass a class, credit hours, and maybe they'll even do it for free or do it as practice. So some of the photos that you see are, taken by myself or on the iPhone, but I would also say that other photos you see are done professionally by a gentleman by the name of Owen, who we found here locally, who's very fair in pricing and gives us great half-day rates. But the bigger conversation would be always make sure your photo is high res. Always make sure, like the obviouses aren't there, like, people in it if you're not trying to get it. You've blown the walkway and the paths are clean. And I would highly, highly suggest that the photos that are on your webpage be professional. And even if you don't have the means or to make all the photos on the webpage professional, like we had just talked about, those landing pages definitely should be professional, especially the ones above the page break, because like we said, we have about 8 seconds to catch the attention of the consumer. So you want your, shining star, your best photo right there.
Perfect. Another really good question here. I have a WordPress site right now, but the maintenance fees for it are over $100 a month. Thinking of switching to Squarespace website so I can manage and upload to the website directly myself. Any downsides to that?
That's a great question. Kind of like is on the fringe of some of what I do and what I know best. But I would say if you do switch, make sure that it is still mobile based. We use an outside web design company. So all of our changes that we make, we're billed like by the 15 minutes. But yeah, I think, Adam, was it $100 a month? Did you say?
$100 a month for the WordPress, yes.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of standard, quite honestly. But if you switch, yeah, I would say make sure it's mobile based, and I would highly encourage you to maybe look at again local businesses or local companies that may be able to help you out for cheaper. But I can certainly get you more information through email on that from our website designer because I know that wasn't a substantial answer.
Okay, great. And then time for one last question here, and then we'll wrap up. Another guest asks, in your experience working for Groundworks, have you already implemented these tools, or was this something you helped the company optimize? Have you been able to see results directly related to Google My Business, for example?
Another great question, and it's a long answer because it's very interesting. When I used to work with whiskey companies, I would come in and these companies were mom and pop, and they would maybe exist for a year or two. So to your point, I would have to implement all of these new strategies. So the back end SEO, the Google My Business, I would create the social media handles from scratch. Groundworks is 11 years old. So I came in right around that 11-year-old anniversary or birthday. And a lot of these tools already existed. However, what I found was they weren't totally up to par, or we weren't getting the most out of it. So the Google My Business, the YouTube channels, the social media pages, those were all there, but I made minor tweaks to just better streamline everything. So again, being consistent, the descriptions were different on all the platforms. We had our company logo and then project photos as our profile image on different channels. I made sure all of those were the same. So yes, most of the platforms and tools already existed and we were already on the record. But when I jumped in, I tweaked those to better perform. And I would say the question I think they asked Adam about Google My Business is that also existed. We were a verified company. Again, we had been in business for 11 years. I would hope there was a Google My Business page, but no one was posting, daily or weekly to it to see those numbers that you saw in the beginning of the slide, or, certain parts of the Google My Business were being neglected. So again, I was able to jump in there and try to maximize that tool as much as possible.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks. Okay, well, I guess that concludes our session for today. A friendly reminder that this session will be available for viewing within the next 24 hours on golmn.com/webinars. You can also check out our resources page, which is up on the webinar right now. And thank you, Joseph, for taking us through that amazing slide deck on marketing and all your knowledge and insights. And be sure to tune in to next week's webinar on Paper to Profit, which is also with Groundworks Land Design. And they'll be hosting a webinar on how to increase revenue by using a CRM. So thanks again, everyone, and have a great day.
Thanks.